Welcome back tonight. We are here live for you. A lot of stuff's going on. A lot of you have already shown up. We appreciate you showing up, by the way. See you over there into the chat areas. And great to have a lot of folks on there. I see a lot of names that I know, a lot of people that I haven't talked to in quite some time as well. So it's really great to see you here. We got a lot going on, but specifically, maybe one of the big things going on here is that we're looking at the possibility and probability now, a high probability, 90% probability of having tropical system into the center of the Gulf of Mexico, which is, kind of odd, not odd, but is this going to be an unusual sort of a situation this year because the Gulf of Mexico is hotter than breaded air. I mean, it is so warm out there in the middle of the Gulf, we don't really know what to expect. We think we do. We know the water is exceptionally you really have to have 100 feet or so for the water depth to be at the optimal temperature. Well, we know it's even deeper than that. We're well into the upper 70s, low 80s, way down there to the 200-foot level in some cases, 200 foot deep. And as a result, we're thinking that there could be one or two of these situations that is truly abnormal, that is truly going to set up and be something special. So we're kind of watching this. It's the first one to come through the Yucatan channel here. Actually, it's going to be just to the east of Cancun, Cozumel, and I had a bad experience there one time. But anyway, south of there is where everything is starting. So thank you all very much. Brian, it's great to see you here tonight. Wicked Weather Man, good to see you as well. Good to see you there too. Who is that? The Florida girl there. And you're from the ATL Florida girl. I think you're from Pensacola. Is it somewhere down there? I did notice that Josh Burnham was already modding. Josh, what a guy. You've already helped out quite a bit. Jordan Hall is with us tonight, who is joining us here. We got everybody except I just got a call from Brett. And Brett's not going to be able to join us tonight, but not at this point. Maybe in just a little bit, we'll see. But we've got Drew with us here, Drew Richards, who is also going to join us. And Drew is a very knowledgeable person. He's from, well, you'd have to be, he's from Alabama. So he's going to be telling us about some of his point of view, too. And we just want to talk about what's going on uh, throughout the rest of the area here. And actually, if you would like to join us, because I've seen some of you giving your forecast here overall, and we don't really applaud that in the chat section. We don't really want to get everybody confused. So if you can hold off from giving your forecast in the chat, that'd be great. Let's just talk about it here. And if you want to talk, we think we can bring you on. So hit our how do they hit you up, Jay? How do they hit us up? All right, if you all right, he's going to do it. Brandon Jarvis is going to sacrifice his Twitter. So if you'll go over there and DM him and do what? Oh, you have to follow him to be able to DM him. So I'm not a Twitter guy. I've actually only Twittered once, and I got in big, big trouble for it. So anyway, Panama City, that's where you're from. So you watch, let's see, you watch Chris Smith, one of my buddies there, Chris Smith, who was worked with me for a while. So anyway, we appreciate you being with us here, and it's going to be an hour or so. We're going to be looking at this. I'm trying to read some of these others. Yes, Brett was great during the Arkansas tornado. We were on our channel too. We were actually on at the same time while he was on that channel there live as well. So it's a pretty big deal there overall too. I want to show you some of the graphics that we're talking about here and some of the modeling that we're looking at. And during the day today, we were watching some of it. Actually been watching this on the GFS for a couple of days. This is the HMON 10, which is telling us this is the 10L. This is Cancun Cozumel, and you can see there's a little rotation there. If you look at the radar imagery, little rotation that's just offshore south of Cancun Cozumel. If you know the island very well at all, there it is. And Tulum is just down to the south. So you're coming up through and into the eastern side of the Bay of Campeche here, and this is always a bloom. Now, you're going to run into some cold water there on the northern side of this. It's always cold as you come around the tip of the peninsula, and then you move back into the area. But then it moves back out over the Gulf of Mexico, where the water temperatures are very, very warm at this point, and then comes on northward here. Drew, I don't even know if did I let you say a word? I don't think I let you talk.
Not yet, Dave, but it's all good. Let's jump right into it. Let's show the models, and then we'll have a little discussion about what we think is going to happen.
Yeah, so if you let this thing go a little bit, we're going to look at several. Now, we don't have anything that's brand new here just yet. The GFS will start to come in here in a little bit. But out of the open Gulf of Mexico, we got a 975 right now that shows up, 975 there. Still south of the Gulf Coast. So when that thing gets into the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, I think we're all really interested about what happens there. There's certainly outflow aloft. There's reason for this to have an anticyclone aloft that's going to help this thing to be its sweet little engine that it wants to be, pulling up moisture from out of the surface of the Gulf Coast and then bringing that and then ejecting it outward. But now we're just to the south of St. George Island here with a 963 low, which would be hurricane status there at that point. We got banding around it. We got a little dry slot to the bottom southwestern side, if you want to say that. And then coming onshore, and we were just talking about this a few minutes ago, this is the HMON. I'm not wild about the HMON at this point, but I am kind of curious about it at this point. But this is this is a Mexico Beach sort of look to it here. And that's going to be certainly at a 962. That would be somewhat of a large hurricane coming in. I don't think coverage-wise it's large, but look at the isobars here, how tightly they get packed. And so you'd have an onshore wind on the east side. You have an offshore wind on the other side to the west, which is not as damaging. But nonetheless, this is from we'll say Apalachicola, St. George Island, over to Carabel, Panacea, through that region there. Carabel, I see you're still on that eastern side of things there at the Carabel Bridge. One of the first hurricanes I ever covered, Hurricane Kate, was there at the Carabel Bridge way back into the 80s, going to school there in Tallahassee. So I know this area very, very well here, but that could be the case. If you followed the HMOD at this point, that's what we'd be looking at, is that storm coming on. Again, to the west of the low pressure, that's for you folks who are watching us in Destin, Panama City, and back over there. That would be a better scenario for you. And I know you need the rainfall. It's been terrible up here with the amount of rain that we haven't had. So you could use the rainfall and not so much the wind. Now, what I did here, Drew, is the worst thing you can possibly do, but I did it because we have a lot of time to explain this. There's no such thing as a point this far out in advance that is 100%. So I mean, just because it's there, probably I'd say that's not where it's going to hit. But there's the viability, the probability that it's going to hit somewhere into that area there. And the NHC, I think we can look at that really quick. I already had it pulled up here, actually. The NHC official forecast says at this point that our cone is going to come up through this area a little bit further to the east, it looks like, into Appalachia Bay. Timing brings that in sometime in the early morning on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Somebody said Taco Bell. Oh, no. I thought that said Taco Bell. My eyes are terrible. Ted, I'm so sorry. It's Ted Bell, not Taco Bell. I apologize.
You must be hungry, Dave.
No, I'm blind as a bat from here.
There you go.
It's Ted Bell. Ted Bell says something like that. He's bad.
That was close. And good point, Dave. One thing I want to mention while you're on this graphic, think back to Ian last year, and that initial track from Ian looked pretty close to that, because I remember in planning stages about a week out, talking about where we're going to go deploy on the Gulf. We were looking at that Big Bend area with Ian, and it really looked like somewhere between Panama City and Tampa being the far southern point of where Ian was going to come on shore. And if you remember, that cone of uncertainty barely even included the Naples area, several days out. And then, of course, that storm ended up taking that southern track from the NHC and coming in much further south. So not saying the storm would do the same thing, but just saying that to keep in mind, if you're anywhere along the Gulf Coast, I would say from Naples, Fort Myers Beach, northward, all the way back to probably Pensacola, be on guard. Go ahead and start making preparations for a possible hurricane coming your way in just a couple days as we get into late Tuesday into Wednesday.
Yeah, again, this is a situation that's really going to unfold pretty quickly here. I mean, by Tuesday, we're not too far off. We're just to the west. If you drew a line, we're west of Naples by Tuesday at 1 o'clock into the afternoon. So not that far out when it comes to this whole situation. And if this is the case, then we're up into Appalachia Bay somewhere around Wednesday morning at that point, too. So two things. Now, if this is a track, if this is something that takes place and we go up here to Appalachia Bay, here's what I know about Appalachia Bay. First of all, it's very, very shallow. I took a sailboat test there from Apalachicola over to Steenhatchee on the side of the, and you can be out of sight of land and still be in like 30 feet of water. Wow. It is super shallow there into Appalachia Bay. So we always used to fear getting a storm that would come up just to the west of Appalachia Bay and have a surge that then brought a ton of water onto the eastern side. And what you've got here, I guess I probably really need a better map, and I'll get one here in just a couple of seconds. But that's going to be Tallahassee there, just to the east of Tallahassee. That track would go, and somewhere there in between there in Lake City, Florida, as well. So pretty much everything there that we've got is what we're looking at when it comes to that whole thing. Is my mic too hot? You said turn the microphone light on.
Oh, he's talking to me. I turned my mic light off.
Oh,
it's all good.
Oh, he wants your light on.
Yeah, my light up microphone.
Oh, sweet.
We're getting high tech on the stream tonight.
I know.
Right?
I'm like, so we're coming up into Appalachia Bay, the warm temperatures, and somebody's like, turn your light on.
That's my son, by the way, watching tonight.
Oh, so, that makes sense.
That's my 13-year-old. This is actually his microphone I'm stealing, so that's why he's wanting to see his microphone light up.
Right, I got you.
Yep.
Palm Beach County, nope, not yet. That's on the other side.
Yep.
So you're all right over there.
Brian. Brian, you are opening up a story here.
I don't think a lot of people know that story, and they probably don't want to hear it at this point. But about a week and a half ago, I did talk about it on here. I swallowed a pen cap. It's one of these things right here. It was handed to me, and I thought it was a pill. Handed to me as a friend, and a friend did. And so I swallowed it, and then I asked her later. I said, "What was the pill that I took?" And she said, "That wasn't a pill. That was the pen cap that you lost about a week ago. I found it." And so I'd swallowed that, and about 3 days later, I still hadn't gotten rid of the pen cap. Brian, we're all friends here, right?
If we're not, we're about to be.
We're about to be. So I took some stuff. I took a couple things. Nothing was happening there. It was all somewhat benign. We were in the, what we would refer to as the doldrums, into the it was a call. We had built into a call, and so nothing was really going on there. And then I took something called wet downburst, I think is what it was called, and and things happened really fast after I took the wet downburst product. It was about I don't know, 30 minutes before I think the pen cap did go to another place, and so I don't think we ever showed the video evidence of knowing. Where
we
is
did
it?
when you weren't here that morning
Oh,
that Brett was intercepting the tropical storm. We
oh,
showed the picture, we showed the video with audio. So if anybody was watching last week when we had Brett out with the tropical
it's on
system,
the. Is it on the desktop?
it should be on your desktop, and it should be already loaded in your show on one of the scenes. It was at the very top. The picture and the video was loaded in.
You hear
So
that, Jarvis? If you can find it, I don't care if you play it.
might have been it might have been the
But
main
it's
layout.
how we
But yeah.
knew. This is how we knew for sure that I had swallowed the pen, because somebody said, "Liar, liar, pants on fire," and I said, "I swallowed whatever it was that you gave to me." Are we going to be able to hear it here? Because we showed the video and it didn't make sense. Huh? So anyway, lucky Diane Weather. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was kind of a, yeah. So so here's how we actually knew. I do a little prospecting in my off hours. I'm a prospector, and so I have some equipment, a metal detecting equipment, and I happen to have this one little thing here. And so my friend, I said, you said I didn't swallow it, huh? You ready? All right. So I said, here's how I know I swallowed the pen, and this is what happened.
There. Now bring it towards my belly button.
You want to go to Fiola for dinner tonight?
Push.
Yeah, sure.
Don't tell me where it is.
Did everybody hear that? I didn't hear it in my ears. Did it make it? Okay, good. So that's how it happened. That's how I knew that I had it there, and sort of the same thing that I knew I'd passed it. Again, you should look it up. It's called wet downburst. If you got to get rid of something, if you've taken something and you really need to get rid of it quick, go to Walmart right now and look on their shelves. It's wetdownburst.com, and they'll help you get rid of whatever it is.
It seems like they're sponsoring our show tonight. I mean,
Let's see. Ray says, so I moved a half a mile from Tyndall 10 days before Michael from the Midwest. Since then, I've moved to near Apalachicola. Bob Sykes, you know where Bob Sykes is right there. I think I better move back to the Midwest. Nah. I lived down there for many, many years. Went to school at Florida State University. I did see two, but never anything that was super devastating. If you've seen the video, I'm going to assume maybe you didn't, but you can look it up. Brett Adair was down there. I was on the air at Weather Nation there in Denver, Colorado. And Brett and I were talking, and then all of a sudden we weren't. And Brett had gotten into it came up so fast and so quickly there in Michael. The surge did, and I didn't know where he was. I didn't have GPS to follow him at that point. But Brett lost his vehicle to the Gulf of Mexico that day. He did recover it, and everybody there was safe that was with him, but what a harrowing experience. Mm-hmm. I cried like a baby for a couple of days because I thought I lost my little buddy. Brett's like Gilligan to me. It's a little bit like Gilligan. And he would probably say I'm Skipper, too. I think he would.
That's awesome.
If he were watching, I think.
Yeah. Does anybody in chat let us know if you remember that watching it live?
Yes, let her join. Let her join. Probably do it later in the show. Tell her yes, because I want to talk to her about what's going on there. Unless she's been asked, just ask her if she's had any alcoholic beverages at all, and we're gonna trust her because this is my channel. Other one's Brett's channel, so no, we share the channels. But anyway, what'd she say? Who recommended wet downburst? I just sort of saw it on the shelf there, I think. It was amazing, too, because it had a little sunset. It has a sweet little sunset. And I think I saw the word gentle. There's nothing about that was gentle. Just saying. I'll remember it the rest of my life. It was yeah.
Ted, good question there. Dave, you want to take Ted's question?
What'd Ted say? Ted Bell. Any chance this storm gets stronger than predicted so far? Well, every time I look at it, it's stronger in the modeling. I haven't seen the modeling go the other way. Have you, Drew? I haven't seen any model that went with an increase in barometric pressure before landfall. So yes, and again, I think it's unprecedented here that the water temperatures are so warm. We got 90-degree water temperatures here into the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know what that buoy is, 420109.7. Anyway, that buoy out there was like way up there. We'll pull that up in just a minute. Actually, I want to do that. Well, we'll do that in a minute when we get off of this. Yeah, let me do it. Because the buoy date is really important to us right now, especially out there into the wide open.
And one discussion I saw on Twitter yesterday, some meteorologists were talking about wondering if the computer models are handling the water temps, correctly, because we're so much warmer than we've ever been in the Gulf. You've got to wonder if maybe they're not realizing how much potential fuel we've got. But one thing we'll look at too, especially as we get closer to the landfall, do we have any wind shear? Because you guys know, in chat, we talk about what hurricanes need and what they like, what they don't like. Warm water, we've got more than enough warm water for fuel, but hurricanes, tropical storms, tropical depressions, they hate wind shear. So we'll have to see as we're getting this little disturbance, this little weakness in the jet stream coming down and kind of lifting the system northward. We'll have to see if maybe we get a little bit of wind shear as this system approaches land to hopefully, if it doesn't weaken it, it kind of holds it, whatever it ends up being as on its final approach. But yeah, I definitely think so far, bare minimum Cat 1 hurricane. And as far as the max or, what we may have on the high end, I think we could easily have a major Category 3 hurricane approaching the northern Gulf or any, maybe the western part of Florida, north of Tampa, depending on the exact track. So if I'm down there right now, if you've got friends, family members, have them prepare. Expect a Cat 1, maybe a Cat 2, but prepare for a major Cat 3. And could it go stronger than Cat 3? I don't think anybody, if you ask anybody last year, if you'd ask anybody last year when Ian was on its final approach, would it be a Cat 5 at landfall? I don't think anybody would have said it would have been a Cat 5 at landfall. And of course, it ended up being Cat 5. So
yeah. So Florida girl wanted to know when the next update was. It's 03Z, so it should be coming out here in the next 30 minutes or so. What we're looking at, the new NHC advisory on that, and then there'll be, they'll start doing intermediates here pretty soon. But the water temperature, go back to the water, get rid of Drew and go back to the water temperature here. The buoy data is what I wanted to show you because these water temperatures are well on their way to being, into the upper 80s here. Let's go back and just look at the actual map, though. I'll show you the map, and you can see what we're talking about here. Come on, map. Come on, baby. There we go. And so out ahead of this, where's our buoys? Running slow tonight.
Mm-hmm. It's not wanting to load for me. Maybe it will on your end.
Nope. I think everybody wants to look at it all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm clicking them, but I'm not getting any kind of data or.
Well, that's just kind of
links popped up.
sucky.
Yeah.
Even Seaman stuff won't pop up.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So it's not just me then.
No, I'm using it on a completely Chrome browser over here, and I can't get anything to load. So hey, they're dead in the water.
So anyway, did they just issue a tropical storm warning, or is that a hurricane warning for Western Cuba? Tropical storm warning, I would guess, or watch.
Tropical storm watch, Western Cuba. Yep, and then a tropical storm warning there for the Yucatan Peninsula, the eastern
In
side.
the purple there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be Cancun, Cozumel. It looks like almost down to Tulum into that area there too. So kind of watching out for all of that. Let me see, Google Earth. Let's do this. We were over in California looking at stuff yesterday, but so there's your storm again down here. This is this is Straits here, Yucatan, and on the western side of Cuba is what we're looking at. Quintana Roo down to the south, Playa del Carmen. Maybe you've been on a cruise or something, and you've been to Playa del Carmen, Cozumel, and Cancun to the north. Here's what we're looking at. Then the water temperatures get much cooler as you travel a little bit further to the north. And through this area. But then you get out here into the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll be talking about some really warm temperatures that start to pop up here into the central Gulf. You get over to the escarpment, and then northward is where you get some really warm temperatures. And again, the actual Appalachia Bay itself, let's say this water is over here into Appalachia Bay, we're going to push that to the north. That would be incredible should that happen, should that be the case, because that would pile up water down here into the St. Mark's area. This is down St. Mark's into the wildlife area here, Port Leon, and St. Mark's is just off to the north. There's a lighthouse down there that's really incredible there on the water in St. Mark's, but there's not a lot of homes down here. In fact, you'd have to travel to 98, I think, to find any significant homes. This is coming up the St. Mark's River, where the right about where the Spanish fort is there, coming up the river before it splits. So you could have some problems there with that. And Wakulla Springs, beautiful place there that I think I went to, a couple of my friends got married there. Justin Kiefer, who does the weather down in Panama City, got married there at Wakulla Springs, and he owes me money, so we're not going to talk about him much longer. But Wakulla Springs, and then northward over to Woodville, back up to Tallahassee, we'd be concerned about that area right there. During Hurricane Kate and Elena that came through both those places, we had tornadoes, so that's always going to be the case on the eastern side of these storms. You can, end up getting that kind of a thing. You can get tornadoes, so there are many facets of this that will be going on that we'll be looking at as we go through the next 3 days here to see what actually materializes. But these are the places that we're talking about being affected. Now, could it change a whole lot? I think somebody else said that up there, or I made it up and I just want to say it myself. Yes, the track could change. That track that we've been showing you for a while is an estimation. But I do want to say this. It looks like the Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, actually, feels pretty good about this track. It's not a wide window of opportunity here, basically. It's fairly tightly packed. So they're basically saying from Panama City down to Tampa is your window of opportunity. Some of the modeling, the GFS went back to the west a little bit further, brought the landfall over Panama City, and that's why we're, still kind of up in the air over this. The GFS is not a tropical model, but it is one that we watch. We don't look at things like the NAM and really give them a whole lot of interest here, but it looks like I guess the only thing that's a variable here to me, Drew, is when we start moving at all to the north, because it's really 1 o'clock on Monday before we've established a forward motion, and so the modeling is going to be off because of that. The modeling that we see now, because initialization is not there's really basically no movement here. That when the model initializes again at 1 p.m. on Monday, that could be a different scenario there. So
very good point. And one thing I've noticed this evening from the National Hurricane Center and visible satellite before the sun went down, that thing was drifting southwest. So what may end up happening, while it's a weak system, if we get that center circulation drift over land, what you'll see a lot of times is the explosion, the nocturnal thunderstorms blowing up overnight, and that center can actually reform from, oh, maybe the old center may be over land. We'll have a new center form over the water. And that can really throw a wrench into modeling in the short term as well, because if you have one center that kind of weakens and a new center takes over, then the models have to scramble and reinitialize and figure out where it's going to go from there. So yeah, we've got a lot of things to figure out between, I think, now and probably Monday morning, Sunday night, Monday morning, which is just not a lot of time for you guys, on the Gulf Coast needing to prepare. So that's why if you get anything from this live, tonight, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Maybe this thing comes in, Cat 1 instead of a Cat 3 or higher. And Brian thinks my microphone looks like a bug zapper on Granny's front porch.
A little bit.
Good evening. Got to say a shout out to Mustang James. Glad to have you with us, sir. One of the regulars.
Mustang James.
Yep.
Tyler Sherry, I may not be saying it right, says, I live in the southeastern corner of Queensland at Kippering, just north of Brisbane in Australia. Can you say this is like Michael and Ian over again? My peak 115 to 160, and absolutely not. Tyler, we never, Ken Graham, a great friend of mine who was the director at the National Hurricane Center not long ago. He's now the grand poobah of all the National Weather Service offices across the country. If there's anything he taught me, and we worked together for many, many years, if there's anything he taught me is never, ever compare one to another. You just can't do it. If you give somebody the perception that one is similar to the other, you're kind of steering them wrong. At this point, they're very independent of each other and what they're going to do. And I think the only variable, again, here is we don't know what's going to happen with this really warm water that's out there over the open Gulf of Mexico. I know that we had, what just went into Texas the other day was a situation where high variability in there. The water was warm there, but we never went into, rapid intensification there with it. Of course, it had it actually had a lot of shear aloft, really, and the upper level winds were pushing that thing well east to west during that whole event. But nonetheless, that was pretty much what it was like there. And what we're expecting is when this moves over the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico, that's when things could change just a little bit more. Let's see. Their key messages. Let's go ahead and read these. Heavy rainfall from the tropical depression, which in many cases would be wonderful. We're into a horrible drought here across portions of the southeastern United States. Personally, I haven't had a good rain at my home since August the 1st. So it's been quite a while. The leaves, just the regular, oak trees are looking so pitiful. The leaves are hanging low and they're really, they look sad. The depression is forecast to become a tropical storm on Sunday. That'd be tomorrow. And tropical storm conditions are expected to be over the peninsula of Yucatan, and warnings in western Cuba in a tropical storm watch area. The depression is forecast to strengthen during the next few days. Could become a hurricane over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, bringing a potential dangerous storm surge, heavy rainfall, and strong winds to portions of the west coast of Florida and the Florida Panhandle by the middle of next week. That, again, would be great. And I think we can look at some of these are wind speed probabilities. And that's something you want to look at here, too, because the orange, I think we're going to go with 40 to 50. I mean, even though this is looks to be a hurricane, their projection is for like less than 50-mile-per-hour winds coming in on shore. This dude over here near Bermuda is a whole different story, by the way. Got some super high winds associated with that thing as it kicks up and moves off. Let's see, arrival time. Let's talk about that because they are expecting arrival time now. This is Tuesday at 8 a.m. coming into the Big Bend area of Florida, just offshore, we'll say, of Panama City. If it continues, again, we don't know what time it starts exactly, what time it starts moving. And so these are certainly going to be tough. But between Tuesday morning and Tuesday evening, it looks like we should be on shore with the storm by this point. And then the winds and surface winds and what else? Let's see. There's your watch, tropical storm field. And that's going to be a tropical storm warning for the Yucatan. It's a watch, again, for the western portions of Cuba. And then the other thing, what's it? Well, where did that QPF go? Like, that's
Yeah, I
not a
don't.
QPF. I thought I saw a QPF. There was
They
supposed to be a QPF.
I don't see one yet. They may issue it on the 10 p.m. advisory, but yeah, I don't see one on the National Hurricane Center page just yet.
All right.
We can probably go
Couple.
to the WPC website. I'll see if I can't pull it up over there. See if they have
Yeah.
anything.
See if you can find it there. Let me see. Sunshine Rose Alligator Alley in Alabama. So if so, I went there a couple of weeks ago. It was so cool, but the poor gators needed rain bad. Yeah, everything does. Everything's been really, really tough. I got a chicken, and I can't tell you the last time I saw her catch a worm. I don't know what the deal is. There's just everything's being affected at this point, though. Barbara is well, I think that's a personal name. Ooh, Frankie and 10 gonna be a sight. Uh, what else
Yeah,
we got?
right now from the WPC site, they do have Eastern Alabama, most of the state of Georgia, and then of course the Florida Panhandle, Big Bend area, west side of Florida, all the way down through Tampa. They do have in excess of 4 to 5 inches of rain, and of course that will change as we narrow down the exact track. But I'm looking at probably a good guess right now, anywhere between 5 to maybe 10 inches of rain along and just right of where that storm comes onshore.
Get some info from the BFS here. Water. Come on. This is the one thing I keep messing up is regions. Let's go to the southeast. If radar 24-hour total accumulation. So on that track, from the GFS, they'd take most of the heavy rainfall, which I think in this case is going to be greater than 4. Let's see. So the yellow is going to be like 9 or 10 inches of rain, and then the purples look like they start at 2.5 or so. So 2 to 3 South Georgia, Colquitt, northward, Albany, eastward, northward, and eastward through South Carolina as well. Not so much in Alabama. It doesn't look like, especially if we take that track, and now we're going to be caught in the southwesterlies. It looks like after landfall, and we'll be affected by a little frontal wave that is moving into the southeast. That's going to push this thing off to the right pretty quickly, and maybe even, I don't remember, is it going back out over the open water?
Yeah, it does have it going back out offshore of North Carolina, but right now it doesn't really have it redeveloping. We'll have to keep an eye on that to see, how strong it stays, and if it loses, it'll probably lose most of its tropical characteristics before it gets back over the water. But we'll have to wait and see what it does. The GFS and a few other models, instead of pulling it northeast once it goes offshore, it kind of just keeps moving due east. And there you go. You got it pulled up and just kind of hangs out there as a weak low pressure area for a few days. So we'll have to watch it and make sure something crazy don't happen like redevelopment.
Yeah. But does look more like a bear clinic zone
Yes.
at that point. It's got a front hanging out the bottom end of it.
Kentucky weather asking about South Georgia, looking like a ton of rain. Depends on your definition of a ton. South Georgia, I think unless the system moves further south and comes in closer to the Tampa Bay area, then South Georgia would be on the drier side of the storm. But right now, I just not seeing that somewhere. Official hurricane track, National Hurricane Center, GFS. A lot of our models are really hitting that Apalachicola Bay area. And on that track, yes, South Georgia will get a lot of rainfall, possibly in excess of 5 inches in some locations.
You can see it still looks very compact. There's dry air on the back side of this, and so I think you get cut off pretty quickly from west to east or east to west, however you want to look at it, with the amount of rainfall that you get. It looks like the really, really heavy stuff, and this is a radar depiction, precipitation rate, that shows you some of the higher amounts are going to be right there near the low pressure center itself. If you believe this, that would certainly be the case there. That's still 982, though, coming on shore there near in and along Tallahassee, Florida. But this is from the 18Z. We still don't have a 0Z Do we not really? Nope. God, I hate time change.
Yes.
Mm.
And Barbara, to answer your question, still a little bit early to know exactly when that center comes on shores. And of course, like Dave said a few minutes ago, it very much depends where that center comes on shore to know when that is going to be. So probably going to be doing, Dave, are we doing? Yeah, we'll do another live. We said tomorrow night with
Oh,
Brett. We'll probably
absolutely.
do
Yeah.
another live every night all the way up into our live coverage of the storm
Right.
coming in.
Right.
So right now, only thing I can do, Barbara, for your answer is give you the official National Hurricane Center answer, which would be center coming on shore sometime overnight Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. The center is still west of Florida, west of Tampa at 1 p.m. on Tuesday. And then by 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the center is up over South Georgia near Valdosta. So, again, that may change between now and then, but right now, the official answer from the National Hurricane Center would be landfall sometime afternoon, evening, Tuesday, all the way up until probably Wednesday morning at the latest. There you go. Thank you, Dave.
Yep. It's somewhere into that area there from Tampa, St. Pete. Is Tampa completely out of it? No, really not. I mean, I've seen a couple of scenarios like this. Again, you're looking at what the upper level wind. You know, we look at steering currents and up around. I always looked at 300 millibars. Steering currents coming in and then the forecast area. So if we're delayed down here at the bottom a little bit, steering current's going to be different up here at the top. If we're delayed 6 hours down here with our forward motion, I mean, you can just see it. It keeps initializing in the same place. So we're almost stationary there for a little while until 1 p.m. on Monday, really still in between Cuba and Cozumel. So,
just got a hot off the presses, Dave. National Hurricane Center on Twitter just tweeting hurricane expected in the Gulf of Mexico. Still, new advisory coming out at the top of the hour. It says the depression expected to become a tropical storm on Sunday. So they're holding to that. Nothing changes there. Likely still to become a hurricane over the eastern Gulf of Mexico in a few days is the way they worded that. So we'll have to see if there's any changes on the 10 o'clock update because they're kind of vague with their terminology there. But still think we'll have a tropical storm by tomorrow and still think we'll have a hurricane depending on what they're defining in a few days. We'll have to see what they say. One note, too, no effect on the southern or the southeastern part of the country or the lower 48, but Hurricane Franklin out there is expected to become a major hurricane. Still may have impacts on Bermuda, it seems. If you have any friends or family members or travel plans out to Bermuda, heads up. Hurricane Franklin may be affecting Bermuda, but not the lower 48.
Can you pull up? Can I show a Twitter from a friend? We just did.
Yeah, there you
go. Michael Lowry, who I worked with at the Weather Channel for many, many years. He was our hurricane guy over there, and then he went to work FEMA. He's a brilliant man. Michael is a brilliant man. He also went to FSU, so we are kind of tight that way. He says an important point from the former chief of NHC's Hurricane Specialist Unit. Don't assume a tightly clustered track forecast from models today means we can rule out the edges, which is what we were just talking about like Tampa and some other places like that. The circulation is nascent. That's a big word in a small thing. I'll have to look that up. Subtle shift or reformation of TD10 can have a big influence on the future path. We were just talking about that, and it just popped up. I mean, this is clearly what happens many, many times in these sort of situations. Until you establish a forward motion that the model can look at and go, all right, this is going to be consistent, then it's very difficult. That's why a lot of times when these storms come in off the Pacific Northwest, until they actually reach land and we get true data that we can work with that goes into the model, then I don't believe a whole lot about what they say because I've seen them change dramatically once they, establish some consistency. And we're certainly not there at this point with that. But nonetheless, that's pretty cool. Michael Lowry, love that guy. We'll get Michael on here one day. Michael's and pick his brain. One of the smartest people I know.
That would be awesome. Yeah, if you guys are prepping there on the Gulf Coast, let us know what you're prepping for tonight. You know what we haven't talked a whole lot about hurricane prep or a kit. We might talk about that a little bit tomorrow night, but you know, if you guys have done it time and time again, so let us know what you're doing at this point in the game since we're kind of uncertain. You know, are you boarding up windows this early? I would say probably not, but you know, going out getting bottles of water, getting some snacks for the kiddos, you know, getting those runs hopefully made tonight or first thing in the morning, because I feel like once we have advisories issued for wherever, you know, along the Gulf Coast, that's when it kind of gets crazy from that point on.
All right, so here is the new information. This is what just came in. It's the maximum sustained wind is at 35 miles per hour, 21-1 if you're plotting. I love to plot. Don't you like to plot?
Yes.
I love to plot. And it was a big deal back when I used to do the weather in Tallahassee. We had the David Neal Hurricane Tracking Chart, and I loved those things, and people did too. I mean, we give them away there at the Publix stores. But anyway, if you're plotting 21-1, 86.4. Sustained wind at 35, and there's your movement southwest at 2, which is no movement at all, really. But what is happening here, this is the brand new advisory number 2, actually, and there's the path, which didn't shift anything. If it shifted, maybe shifted a little bit to the east, I guess, if you kind of eyeball it.
Just a little bit.
I can turn the track line on. So it is a little further to the east there. Now that gets over there a little bit further to the east, and I've been in this area. That's not a beach, by the way. That is cattails and oyster bars. There's not a little swampy in that region, so you don't really get to the beach houses till you're a little bit further south. Dale Steenhatchee's right in that region there, but not a whole lot going on right there specifically. Let me see if I can. We'll Google Earth it again to sort of look at what's happening here, because this is again. There's Fish Creek, the wildlife management area is there, which would be kind of horrific if it was a large hurricane, because I've seen those messed up. The Acafina Wildlife Management Area and State Park is right there as well. The Big Bend Wildlife Management Area, Hickory Mound Unit. See, this is all wildlife management areas here. Great for producing trout and redfish, but not for a beach house. So very little of that in this region, but the water could pile up quick. This Appalachia Bay, as I was telling you again, is super duper shallow throughout this area here, which means that if you bring water from the depths, say off the coast of Tampa, and you start pushing it, friction brings that water up into Appalachia Bay in a fetch that is from the south to the north, then you push a lot of water through here, and it's going to go up quickly and much further than you would likely see in many areas here. This is the Osceola Wildlife Management Area, Flint Rock, and then the St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge there as well. Steenhatchee's down to the south, 10 Mile Steenhatchee. And then you start getting into some homes as you get down here near Cedar Key and beyond. You go to south or down to Tampa and Yankeetown. You'll find some there as well. Remember when it used to be some of the break-off point was, I don't know if you were born yet, but Yankeetown used to be the other break-off point for when the Hurricane Center would list
the advisories
the
and stuff.
Advisories would be Yankeetown or the other one that was kind of obscure. Those break-off points, so...
And they've changed them a couple times, I think, through the years. So, one thing, who was that in chat? Cindy, Nags Head, North Carolina. So, I was looking at that while we were looking at Google Earth with Dave. The official track, as of 10 p.m., has this thing on the 31st, which is Thursday, I believe. 7 p.m. Thursday. In North Carolina, still as a tropical storm, sustained winds at 40 with gusts up to 50. So a weak tropical storm, but still a tropical storm. And yes, you know, you might have some rough surf. You might have some rip current issues there along the beaches, Nags Head, all the way down through the Pamlico Sound area, North Carolina, all the way down to probably Long Bay and the Myrtle Beach area, depending on how much wind energy we still have in that system, even though it's a weakening tropical storm as it's coming to the Carolinas. But yep, impacts, you know, heavy rainfall, gusty winds, definitely still possible there throughout the Carolinas as we go throughout midweek and into Thursday.
All right. Fill extra bags.
Brian.
I think we're going to have hey, Virginia. How far do you think it'll go into North Carolina? Uh, yeah, that's what he was just. He had just sort of talked about that just a second ago. We're still thinking that North Carolina is, on the south side, but we're talking about a very minimal situation here, like your typical afternoon thunderstorms kind of thing. The two things that you do see here is that the closer each one of these points are together. Now, we're looking at 12-hour intervals here between, or 24 hours, aren't we, up here? 24-hour intervals. So the distance between each one of these points, like this one and this one, that distance right there is how far this thing has traveled in a 24-hour period. And you can see how close that is from the S to the H. That means it was moving slowly and starting to move a little faster right here. And then look at the gap that you have now. Now in 24 hours, it moved from just west of Tampa all the way over here to South Carolina, actually. And then the next 24 hours, that means it's gotten picked up into the southwesterlies and it's moving. Now it's moving pretty rapidly off to the east, which then cuts down the threat for very heavy rainfall in any one particular spot. I mean, you're going to get heavy rainfall, but I mean, it totaling a huge amount. But you still get very heavy rainfall out of this. In fact, you will. Now, the other thing that could happen here, I wish I had a pen. See the line, the black line that goes up through here? I put it on and take it off again. That black line right there. Now, anywhere along the line and to the right side of the line is susceptible to have tornadoes. And this is this sort of, like I said, I remember when I was in a couple of hurricanes back into the 80s there over Florida, tornadoes was one of the bigger things that we had. If you have a feeder band that hangs to the south, and we know we do, at least in some of the modeling, it shows a predominant feeder band that hangs southward across the peninsula. Those can just bring what may start out to be waterspouts that come on shore and end up being, land tornadoes that can take place there on the eastern side of that. So we'll be looking out for that, even though the extent, as Michael was saying, the extent of the radar coverage doesn't look to be a whole lot. One feeder band can sit there and produce over for days, actually. I won't remember the name of the storm, but I remember one that was producing tornadoes as the low center came on shore. And then the feeder band, stayed over Florida, across South Florida, and produced tornadoes for like three days later. We were still having tornado warnings in South Florida because of the feeder band. You know what I'm talking about? That was recent too.
I do remember that. I don't remember which storm it was though.
I
do.
I mean, we just
remember Rita that come on shore. What was that? 2005, I think, when Rita hit. That was a prolific tornado producing, as well. So. Yeah, flooding too. You talk about those feeder bands that set up. We talk about heavy rain, we talk about flooding all along the track, but you can have tornado warnings and flash flood emergencies for 12 hours plus if you get right under one of those feeder bands that is stationary over your location, just keeps funneling in off the water. So a lot of issues that we may have to deal with over the next several days. Hopefully, again, no major issues. We don't want a Cat 4 Hurricane Plus coming on shore, but prepare now. That's what we're talking about tonight. We're hoping for a low-end hurricane, but we want you to be prepared in case we get something bigger than that. Somebody said just a second ago the barometer, the millibars, is not too low. Yeah, that's normal. We're talking about a tropical depression tonight with 35-mile-per-hour wind. So 1,005 millibars or 29.68 inches. Yeah, we're not going to see that pressure start to drop until the storm starts to strengthen into a tropical storm and eventually into a hurricane. And that's when you'll notice the millibars or the inches, if you're however you're tracking at home, start to go down. Trying to get caught up in chat. You guys are being awesome tonight in chat. We appreciate it.
Jarvis said that's what she said. The other part of this was when you're talking about barometric pressure, is you're also talking about high pressure somewhere else. I mean, you don't. There is a correlation between millibars and what might be a tropical storm or a hurricane, but if you also have high pressure involved, a higher millibar for the storm can still create the same kind of winds because it's all about gradient. It's all about the difference between the high pressure and the low pressure, and wherever there's high pressure, if it's a a much bigger high pressure point, then um, uh, perhaps that would be the case. Excessive heat here, high pressure and excessive heat here lately. Um, yeah, we've had some. That's about the most boring subject, though, that I could possibly think of. I'd rather talk about the downburst again, but it's hot, folks. I mean, it's not for some of you. I guess if you're young enough, maybe you haven't seen this kind of heat before, but your parents have, and I noticed that some of the records that have been broken were, long time ago, like in the early 1900s, and then there was another bout there in the 60s that was super hot. And so the weather is super cyclical. I remember a couple of times having Drew. I remember working in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We used to have this thing called the River Fest, where for a week, in the first week of June, for almost 9 days, we'd have outdoor events. One of those times for the event for the whole week, we were above 100 every day. The heat index was horrible, so they moved it to another day, to another week. I can't remember. I think they moved it to May, and it ended up it rained for 4 of those days. Was canceled. What's her name? The one that I remember, the biggest one I remember canceling though was Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine. Well,
Yep.
they were up on stage. Now they're all on a barge out in the middle of the Tennessee River. The barge holds the talent, and then everybody else standing on the riverbank. And then I'm at the top there in my little bitty tent for WDEF television, and I'm doing the weather every night. As soon as the thing is over with, the cool part was I got to introduce many of the acts that were out there. I got they would let me go up. I didn't introduce her, but they did introduce some other people. But uh, the as soon as that thunderstorm started, who had cover? Dave Neal, Channel 12 had a 8x8 tent, and there were 60,000 people there.
Wow.
And so, seriously, I was truly worried.
Yep.
Worried for our little bitty tent. And the thunder and lightning came up, and she sang, "Get on your feet." I think what's her song? Get on your feet.
Yeah. I know.
Get on. She sang that song, and then lightning just across the river. And she went in, and they waited till midnight, and then she said, "Gotta go. I gotta be in Virginia tomorrow."
Wow.
So she left, and so there was a little bit of anger there too because she left. That was a weird sort of yeah. They gave me after that. They gave me a guy who used to play basketball for UTC. He was like 6'9". Daryl Ivory was his name. Di we called him. Daryl would go around with me. Daryl's passed away recently, but Daryl would go around with me and protect little Dave because Daryl could kind of hold me with one hand, but he made sure that I didn't get pounded on.
Yep. Somebody
Anyway,
asked if we could see spaghetti models, and I'm trying to pull them up to see if I can show some. They're pretty. They're pretty. Well, maybe we'll save that for tomorrow night. How about we do that? How about we keep you here for a teaser? We'll show the spaghetti models tomorrow night. We'll get that loaded up prior to us going on.
Virginia, do you remember? She mentioned Hugo, which was an iconic storm for me. Hugo was that came in on the East Coast, and as a doozy of a storm. And if you look, take this away for a second because I got to show you a satellite image. This is one of the things that I remember about Hugo was that. Do you remember it, Drew? Very distinctive
really.
satellite.
Mm-hmm.
There was no question where Hurricane Hugo was going because of the satellite image. And one of the things of, come on, baby. It was already on shore, but this is what it looked like coming on shore. Had a huge eyes, like 50 miles wide, but coming into South Carolina like that. Its feeder bands had gone northwest to southeast, and there was no question where it was being driven. Look at this. Look at the long arm. It even went over to another low, which we love to call Fujiwara, when they're kind of are holding hands there together. But there's Jack Bevan. Jack Bevan works at the Hurricane Center. He's one of the 7 meteorologists there. Jack was a roommate of mine at Florida State University and used to pet sit for my dog.
Awesome.
I think he named my dog, actually. He would say, Dave, your dog needs a rubber extender or it's going to break its neck. He talked a little bit, because he talked a little, I don't know. So Hugo was 918 right there, but look at the track. It was going northwest the whole time. So it was traveling around the big Bermuda High throughout its entirety of its life. But what a big storm. And I'll just be honest with you. I was on the air in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the time. I was on the air because we were having tornado warnings. I was on the air, and I'd been on the air about 10 hours at that point. And then I thought I was having a heart attack. And an ambulance came and got me, and they took me off the green wall. And took me to the Erlanger Hospital there in Chattanooga, Tennessee, because I thought I was having a heart attack.
That's pretty wild.
Yep. So
Matthew,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Matthew asking about Dothan again. Matthew, just keep checking back, because right now, Dothan is kind of one of those iffy locations. If
Where
that continues,
show me Matthew. There he is, Matthew. Matheny.
Yep. So just you may get rain, you may get winds, you may get tornadoes if that thing treks a little bit further west, which right now it doesn't seem to be, I don't think Pensacola is going to get a direct hit. I may eat those words in a few days, but I mean, it would really take this thing going into Pensacola and then up towards the Montgomery area to get you on the right hand side of that storm in Dothan to be on the bad side. So right now, depending on the exact track again, with the National Hurricane Center shifting even further east on their 10 o'clock update, you're on the dry side. You're on the weak side of the storm in Dothan. No major worries, but again, that may change because still technically you're close enough to the cone of uncertainty to definitely keep checking back with us.
Matthew, answer me a question. Is the spa still there? The only highway I think it was highway. The loop that goes around Dothan is the natural spring and the spa there. I used to go there when I was a kid and play golf, and then get in the natural spring there in Dothan, Alabama. I love that place. That is the Wiregrass area of East Alabama, and I used to work for a radio station there called Max 106.
Awesome. It's beautiful down there. That's our
Enterprise.
Way back and forth to the Panama City Beach area when we go down there to take a trip. We go through Dothan every time, and it's just beautiful in that part of the state.
Nice place.
Yep. Ivan, I remember that. Florida girl. Ivan shifted west last minute, and somebody said something. Opal. I remember Opal coming in 1995. That was a pretty crazy storm for us up here in North Alabama, if I remember correctly. We got a lot of rain and wind and some wind damage off of Opal.
I was working in Birmingham, Alabama for Opal and Ivan. And
Ivan was crazy.
I tried to go to sleep a couple of times during Opal, and it kept, if you remember, it kept getting stronger and stronger. I mean, it it exploded overnight. And actually had a boat down at Orange Beach Marina. I had a boat that was there, and they found it about a mile and a half away from where it was moored, there where it was in a dry area. It landed in a lady's yard there, and we found it because of that was the week that the Gulf Stream was starting to go out and taking high-res images, and they sent me an image, and I found my boat about a mile and a half away from where it was stored there at the Orange Beach Marina. And a lady called me a couple of days later, and she said, I'm going to charge you $50 a day until you get the boat out of my yard.
Wow.
True story.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was really crazy because I was like, how am I going to get it out of your yard?
Exactly.
Not anytime soon.
asking if Atlanta will be affected. Mark, kind of the furthest west model is what we showed right at the top of the show. So if you missed that, you can go back and rewind and watch this again here when we get done. But the HMON, one of the hurricane models, like Dave said, it's just hard to put a lot of faith into any of these models at this point in the game. But the HMON has this thing coming in right about where Michael did in the Mexico Beach area, just east of Panama City. And if it happens to be correct, that would be a little bit more impactful for the Dothan area, more rain, more wind, because the center of this thing comes in again just east of Panama City, and then as it moves up through Georgia as a weakening hurricane tropical storm, the Atlanta area would get a decent amount of heavy rain and probably some gusty winds. Nothing crazy, probably 30 to 40 miles per hour. But again, even on that furthest north track from that model, you're still on the northwest side in Atlanta. So again, on the official National Hurricane Center track, you're going to be well away from the worst weather. Rain in Atlanta, yeah, probably. A little bit of gusty wind, yeah, but nothing crazy at all. So we'll keep updating you for the Atlanta metro area.
Yeah, and the WRF, by the way, let's kind of look at this. This is from noon again, so it's pretty old, but this is from the noontime when it first started to initialize, and that's the low. Come here. There's the low coming across the northwestern tip of Cuba, and oh my gosh, I hate grabbing these little.
Yeah, the little slider bars. You got to. They're hard to do on an iPad.
And if you do it with your right hand, then you can't see where it's going. So I got to do it with my left hand. So that's a little bit. That's not funny. That has a 942, which is always overdone.
Yep,
always overdone. But that's a little bit. I mean, it gives you an idea of two tracks now that we have from some of the modeling here. Two tracks that we have, and both say Appalachia Bay. They don't say Panama City anymore. At least those two don't. I'll be very interested to see what the GFS says. The new GFS, which will start coming out here pretty soon. Because we don't really have anything else, do we? These that new parent model comes out. What does that do? That's a lot further south, south and east, at 957.
So yeah, you guys asking about Dothan and Atlanta, you're not even going to hardly know there's a tropical system nearby if it takes that far south.
If it does that.
A little bit of clouds, a little bit of wind, but nothing crazy.
So we're on much earlier than we had anticipated being on, because we're about to put in some new graphics here, and we were just trying to see if we could making sure that you guys knew we were still here. I see many of you that I haven't seen in a while, so it's great seeing you again. And what did Euro say? Euro didn't say anything yet. Or you just want to see what it said at 18Z?
And while you're pulling that up, Joyce, Central Florida. Yeah, I mean, even if the center does not cross you guys there in Central Florida, you're on the bad side of the storm. So a lot of rain, maybe some gusty winds, depending on, how close to the center you are in Central Florida. But I would think, the inland tornadoes from the hurricane and flooding is going to be your main threats there in Central Florida.
Could very well be. And it's a 996 coming into Appalachia Bay on the Euro at 18Z this morning. The 0Z, the 12Z probably didn't have a whole lot of really good information there. But again, pretty much the same track, just a much, much weaker sort of scenario the Euro has. If it changes dramatically, it'd have to change dramatically to look like all the other stuff at this point. So kind of where we are with it at this point. And if there's any kind of a trend, and we always look for trending when it comes to this, if there's any kind of a trend at the moment here, the trend is a push to the east with each and every model that we see at this point. But again, it's all going to be determined by when the steering current picks it up and moves it the first time, because until that actually happens, and you can't expect the model to know exactly that motion is going to happen, but until that happens, then the modeling really can't do a whole lot. So That is where we are. I've been too young. I have been too young to remember most storms I lived through after 205, except the main names. Elementary schools were still open during that time, too. Winter Haven, Florida. Love that. Good to see Connie today. Barbara, great seeing you. Matthew. PFS kept a fairly westward trend, but it can change. Our local meteorologist saying it spins times ahead. See, Matthew didn't answer my question. He's asking me another question. Matthew, you're supposed to be my dude.
The Dothan dude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Matthew
And,
the Dothan dude.
and I asked him if the spot was still there because it's very important to me. Uh, Trying to go to Tampa. I feel it's just going to hit Punta Gorda. Just my opinion. You're welcome to your opinion.
Mm-hmm. Nobody knows at this point. So you guys, like I said, just keep checking back because we're going to be here for the duration leading up to the storm, and then of course Brett will be heading down
Matthew sent it.
to.
Yeah.
Oh, he did send it. Okay, Olympia Spa. He says
The Olympia Spa. That's
Yep.
what it was. You used to could stay there and play golf. They had 36 holes of golf. You could stay there, bucks, and play
Wow.
all. You could stay there at the. It was a. I think it was a Holiday Inn, but you could stay there and play golf as long as you wanted to for $99. So, me being the cheap guy that I am, I would go there once a week, once a year for a week, and they had it's a natural spring, hot water spring there too. I think, if I remember it correctly.
that's pretty cool.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. He's Drew, and I started saying I'm Dean, but I'm not. I'm David. Brett was going to be with us tonight, and Brett is not. Jarvis is with us tonight. He's in my ear, driving me insane about as much as my cat is. Everything is hunky-dory at this point, but we're going to be watching wildfires, whole forests engulfed in flames. Where's that at? Alva? Matt, I'm glad the storm will be gone by the 1st. I'll be headed to Jacksonville on the 1st. Well, it's all about you, Matthew, so sure.
Is it locked up, Jarvis?
Huh?
Jarvis was saying something in my ear. I was
Barbara, thank you. We're going to be on again tomorrow night. Invite a friend. But we're going to put people on tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we're going to find a way to give you a little URL that you can click on, and you'll be on with us. Hello?
Yeah, I think Jarvis, do you need me to wrap it up here in a minute? Uh-oh.
We're gone.
I think we locked up there. I can still hear you, Dave, but
Well, no, I don't know if we're on the air, but because my computer died.
yeah, I heard Jarvis say Dave's computer, and then there we go.
Oh.
We're back. We're back.
What happened, Jarvis? Okay. Brian tomorrow night says he's going to wear pants because he wants to be on with us. Brian, we're going to put you on the air tomorrow night, and we'll debrief you as to what you see. In fact, we're going to use some of you who down there on the coast. Maybe you can we can do some live interviews with you while this is going on, and while we're actually while all this is taking place, we're going to use you as weather spotters for us throughout the area. And I know some of you down there who have been with us for a while, so I can vouch for you. I know you're going to do well, but we're going to wrap it up now. We've had a pretty good viewership tonight, a couple of thousand people, and thank you for doing that. He's Drew, and you'll catch Drew on one of the other channels. Drew, you want to give a little shout out to yours and the other side of this where Brett is live. Brett is going to be live out and about in his vehicle with another gentleman there, and they're just, it's hilarity. It's just so much
It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, so
It's a lot of you guys go show Brett some love on his new YouTube channel after we get done here at Bama Storm Chaser on YouTube. Go subscribe there, click the notification bell because that's where we're going to be doing all the live streams of Brett out in the field. Of course, we'll still be here doing stuff on the LSM channel as well, but go show that channel some love and we would appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll just be doing our thing over here as well. I'll be on the air and using Brett's feed as well when he gets into places where he's not really getting a feed out. But we're going to be doing both of those. Josh, great to have you here tonight. Yes, the Alabama humidity is so messed up, and maybe we can get some of that. If the storm goes to the east of, states like Alabama and Mississippi, at least a little bit of a northerly component of wind should come in and help the situation get a northerly fetch. In fact, this would be more like a wedge effect if it takes the track that it's on right now, which would help things out. Joyce, good to see you as well. We wrap it up now, and we'll talk to you again probably as early as sometime during the day tomorrow. But we'll send out a little note and let you know. Thank you all for watching us here tonight. For Drew and Brett, who had an emergency, he couldn't make it. We thank you for being with us, and also Jarvis, who is running our machine tonight.